Cameo coins. What is a Cameo coin? Dealers began calling me the Cameo King when I came out with my first book. This was late 91, early 1992. It talked about proofs in Cameo proof coins. And it explained which of these were rare and why they were so rare in Cameo and Ultra Cameo condition. And this book was so influential that PCGS and NGC actually began to adopt the Cameo, Ultra Cameo standard for proof coins, which up until then, folks, PCGS had no Cameo, Deep Cameo designation. NGC had no Ultra Cameo designation, but it was the influence of this book that caused them to adopt those designations for proof coins today. So when you see an American Silver Eagle, and it says Proof 69 Ultra Cameo or Proof 70 Ultra Cameo, it all started with this book. What is a cameo? Take a look at these coins and look at the portrait of Kennedy there. Look at how frosted it is. That's a cameo. And also note that these are what we refer to as proof coins. And I emphasize the word proof versus a mint state coin. Proof coins are meant to represent a state of the art, the finest possible quality the Mint's able to produce given the technology of the day. And the Mint has been making proof coins since the early 1800s. But it wasn't until the last several decades when they really perfected the art of making the Cameo proof coin because of the technology the Mint now uses to ensure that you get a Cameo proof because of the beauty, the eye appeal of these coins. These coins, after all, are works of art. And that was the Mint's goal, to create this work of art that has the most beauty and eye appeal possible. Now, this process really was not, again, perfected until the late 1970s. If, for example, you had bought a slightly earlier Kennedy, here's a 1969 proof set with a Kennedy $50. Now, the holder's pretty scratched up, but you can see there is no Cameo Contrast on any of the coins. They're brilliant proofs. If you go into the Franklin $50 series, virtually all Franklins are what we refer to as brilliant proofs when they're struck in proof condition. Now, this coin also has numerous other flaws like spotting and all kinds of other imperfections, but you can see the deeply mirrored fields of the coin, which is one of the signatures of a proof coin from this era. To make a proof coin, the Mint goes to a lot of work, especially pre-late 1970s. Back in this earlier era, folks, it was very much a craft, and the dies were prepared by craftsmen, and the coin blanks were prepared by craftsmen. Nowadays, technology has really taken over the process so that you are guaranteed nowadays of getting a beautiful Cameo proof. Back then, to prepare a die to make a Cameo proof, what they would do is dip the die in a bath of 5% nitric acid, 95% alcohol. They called it pickling. So the die would have this frosted appearance all over the entire surface. And then they would take the die and put it on a buffing wheel. Now, the buffing wheel would only buff the fields of the coin because the portrait of Franklin on the die was recessed. So the recessed portion of the die would not receive that buffing treatment. It would retain that acid-etched frosted cameo effect. And so when they were done buffing the fields, they would put the die in place and they would put the coin blanks in and strike these coin blanks under 200 tons of pressure and strike them at least twice to bring out every possible detail of the design. It was a very labor-intensive process, and these proof coins were struck in very limited numbers. Those earliest strikes off the die, which NGC refers to as Ultra Cameo, and PC just refers as deep cameo, are extremely rare and highly prized among collectors who really want the best. Now I have some educational Proof Kennedy and Proof Franklin half dollars to show you to really help you understand this whole concept of these Cameo, Ultra Cameo coins and why they're so rare. Here we have some earlier strikes off the die. We have a Cameo Kennedy half dollar from this earlier era. Now to get a Cameo designation, it has to have Cameo Contrast on both the obverse and reverse. And that is really significant because, folks, in this earlier era, in order to conserve dies, they only removed that die that was most worn. And the obverse and reverse dies wore at different rates. So for example, if they had an obverse die that still had a couple hundred strikes left before they felt it was fully worn, but the reverse die was completely worn, they would replace that reverse die with a brand new reverse that would have beautiful Cameo Contrast. Unfortunately, that obverse die was, again, very worn. It had no Cameo Contrast. It was brilliant. So you'd get a couple hundred coins struck with no obverse Cameo Contrast and really nice reverse contrast, and then they would replace the obverse die with a brand new obverse. So it would have a beautiful obverse Cameo. But by then the reverse die had worn and it would have no Cameo Contrast left on it. So you get a lot of what we call one-sided cameos. To get a Cameo designation or Ultra Cameo, you have to have a set of dies that have Cameo Contrast on both the obverse and reverse. And then the next coin we have there is the Ultimate, 1968 in Ultra Cameo. And it has Ultra Cameo Contrast on both the obverse and reverse. Look at this coin. It looks like that 1991 that I had shown you, except the fact that this is maybe, several thousand times rarer in the condition you see it in with this Ultra Cameo Contrast. Again, because the technology used, the pickling of the dies to create the acid etch cameo effect, those dies were very delicate. They wore very quickly. Relatively few Kennedy half dollars were struck with this kind of contrast before the dies would begin to wear until they no longer had Ultra Cameo Contrast. Now, folks, when I say, especially during this Franklin era, that only the earliest strikes have this kind of contrast, I've put together this chart that really crystallizes it and helps you explain exactly when I say rare, this is what I mean by rare. This is the total number of half dollars graded by NGC up to this point in time, from 1950 to 1963. And you can see in just proof condition, they've graded about 300,000 coins. If we want to do an accurate comparison as far as the proportion of proofs to Ultra Cameo proofs, the proof number would be in the millions compared to those Ultra Cameos. Because when a dealer or a collector gets a proof set that has a nice Ultra Cameo Franklin in it or a nice Cameo Franklin, you better believe that they're going to submit it and get it graded because they know it's worth some really, really good money. Now, for those of you who want to build one of these most beautiful, beautiful collections in Cameo or Ultra Cameo, you need to also understand that NGC and PCGS recognize the additional value of getting one of these coins in Ultra Cameo. If you were to attempt to put together a top quality Franklin collection in proof, to list it in the NGC registry, which is their national registry on their website, gets national recognition. A 1955 in regular proof 69 gets around 1,600 points in value towards building your set. On the other hand, that same coin in 69 Ultra Cameo gets almost 10,000 points. I've talked about half dollars, Franklin and Kennedy half dollars, but it also applies to Washington quarters, Roosevelt dimes, Jefferson nickels, Lincoln cents. My first book covered all those denominations. This is a great series to get involved in because you literally are getting the best of the best, the most beautiful coins possible. And to get them in the highest grade possible, you're getting some extraordinarily rare coins. And because only the earliest strikes have this kind of cameo contrast, you won't find hordes of 50 or 100 1955 Franklins coming out in ultra cameo contrast because the dies just did not strike that many coins. I hope you understand or begin to understand just how special the cameo and ultra cameo is from this earlier era in the art of proof making at the United States Mint.